Hi everybody, welcome to Ask Mark, our scuba diving Q&A, where I, Mark, a former scuba diving instructor, do my very best to answer your scuba diving questions. So if you do have any questions, then pop them down in the comment section underneath this video on YouTube. And if you use this Ask Mark hashtag in said comment, doesn't matter where, it gets yourself and your question featured in an up and coming video, but I do type out an answer in the comment section if I can, so you do get an answer as soon as possible. You don't have to wait for the video to come out, and the audience, they do help out as well, which is quite nice. Today I'm answering a question from Ted Danson about the Apex DSX dive computer and pony cylinders. So Ted says, hi, do you know if the Apex DSX comes with a screen protector? And when you speak to Apex, could you ask them if they considered using Bluetooth to connect the computer to the O2 analyzer? Also, thinking about getting a pony setup, what are the pros and cons of side mounting it compared to cylinder mounting? Thanks, cheers, Ted. Yes, the Apex DSX does come with a fitted screen protector straight out of the box. They put that on at the factory, so no bubbles. And there will be it's going to be a spare part later on this season, they said. Hopefully 2023, they did say sometime later this year. So yes, it will be available as a separate part if it isn't already. And I imagine they did think about putting a Bluetooth connection between the O2 analyzer and the DSX dive computer, but it's just going to add additional cost on an already pretty expensive dive computer, as well as now you have to have a battery to power the Bluetooth technology and everything that comes with like Bluetooth pairing. And if there's a cable and it just connects to the computer, it's just so much less technology that goes into it. So I imagine they looked at it, but is it worth it? Cost benefit analysis, they probably said nah, it's probably not worth it. But looking at pony cylinders, yeah, so you do have those two options when it comes to a separate cylinder. So for anyone new to diving, a pony cylinder is just a small, usually like a 3-litre cylinder. We call it a pony. I'm not actually sure why we call it a pony, we just call them ponies. But yeah, it is just a redundant air source, just so that in the unlikely event something goes wrong with your regulator and you can't breathe from your cylinder, instead of needing to get to your buddy as soon as possible, you have a completely separate air source that you can breathe from. Or if your buddy is out of air, then you have separate air sources, so you're not breathing from a single first stage. Because two divers breathing from a single first stage, even if they're coming out of different second stages, all the gas is routing through that first stage. That can put a lot of work on some regulator first stages, and if you're at depth, if you're in cold water as well, then it can put a lot of strain on them. So a lot of divers, myself included, we like to dive like twin cylinders. So you have two first stages so that you're both breathing off of a separate first stage. It just makes it a lot less work for that individual first stage. And yeah, when you've got a separate, complete redundant cylinder setup, it's just redundancy, extra safety. So yes, you can either mount it on a pony clamp. There are plenty of pony clamps out there. I used to have a metal sub one. I think I sold it because I was looking for it the other day and I couldn't find it. Just attaches the small cylinder onto your bigger cylinder, and a lot of divers dive that way. It's quite good in that it's very rigid. It's out of the way. You don't really notice it. It doesn't shift your buoyancy that much, especially if it's an aluminium pony cylinder. Most of the ones that I've ever dived were steel, but that's because steel cylinders are quite popular here in the UK. Yeah, that's the real benefit, in that it's out of the way, but you can still reach it. If you invert it so that the valve is down around your left-hand kidney, you can still reach that valve. You can switch it on and off without having to dislocate your shoulder and reach it. It's really just nice and convenient. And then, yeah, you just route that hose wherever you need to. If you're side mounting it, the benefits of that is that I have dived it across my chest. That's how my instructor, who used to dive a rebreather, that's how he kind of taught me to clip it on, and didn't know any different at the time. I was still quite new to it, so I clipped it across my chest. It works, but it increases your diving profile, whereas side mount, it kind of tucks it underneath your arm, so it's a lot neater. It gives you flexibility, means that it doesn't have to be physically attached to you. You can, at the start of the dive, walk down to the edge of the water and attach it onto a rope and lower it down into the water, or same with at the back of the boat, you can lower it into the water, go back, get kitted up, and then get ready, get everything on, jump in the water, and then attach it onto yourself, and vice versa. At the end of the dive, you can disconnect it, hook it onto something, get out of the water without having to heave that up as well with it, and then you can de-kit and then pull on that rope and pull it back up. It just allows a little bit of extra flexibility in the water. And if you're diving with multiples as well, you can organize them a bit easier side mount, whereas if it's just clamped onto your back, it's very fixed, so you don't get that flexibility. If your buddy does run out of gas, you can donate their gas from that pony, they can be breathing from it, and then you can unhook it and hook it onto them, so you're not tethered to them by a hose. So just side mount gives you that flexibility. And yeah, the main downside is that it just kind of sits underneath your arm, which if you naturally kind of hold your arms outwards anyway, it's fine. It takes a little bit of practice to get that kind of buoyancy right and that positioning, making sure that everything's like in the right place. You do have an extra D-ring on, an extra bolt snap on your D-ring, but if you've ever side mounted cylinders before, you get used to it pretty quickly. The downsides of like back mounting are that, yeah, it's very inflexible and it is just attached onto you. So it's basically whether you'd prefer something a bit more flexible and fluid in the side mount, so you can move it around and you can do things, or something a bit more rigid and fixed in place. You don't mind that additional weight on your shoulders when you're getting kitted up or something. Those are kind of like the pros and the cons. Which way you go down is kind of up to you. Most divers, just with a pony, diving like a single cylinder, are probably going to back mount it. But if you dive twins, then it tends to move onto the side so that it doesn't get too crowded on your back and you don't look like you got like 3 cylinders on your back. You're either like vintage Jacques Cousteau or you're going for some kind of depth record. So yeah, flexibility with the side mount or like fixed for back mount. They're both good choices. It just really comes down to the style of your diving, whether you prefer it like fixed or a bit more fluid, but they're both fine. And once you get used to it, it's pretty easy. As far as like a cost, I suppose you could say that side mount is arguably cheaper because it's like, you can do it really cheap and just get a I can't even think what you call it. I always call them Alice bands for some reason, but they're not. They're the I've lost the word where you screw it and it tightens the band. I'll put the word down here when it springs to my mind later. And a bit of paracord and some bolt snaps. That's really it. You can buy kits. It's buried under there, so I won't show you. It's that includes a handle down the length of the cylinder, so that can be quite useful because it gives you another way to cart the cylinder around if it's in like a side mount setup, and that's pretty cheap compared to a pony clamp setup, because the pony clamps, it's a bit more hardware and you either have it like where it's either completely fixed or it's quick release, and then you have to think about, I don't want it like quick release in the water because what if something just quick releases? Yeah, whereas it's a bit harder to accidentally quick release a side mount. But yeah, they're all pretty strong. So If I were to do it and I'm diving on twins, I'd side mount it. If I was diving singles, I'd probably also side mount it, just because that's how I'm used to having extra cylinders. But that's just my personal preference. I prefer that kind of flexibility so I can move things around should I need to. But the choice is ultimately yours. If you do dive a pony cinder, let Ted know down in the comments below. Let them know how you dive ponies, whether you're fixed back mounted or you side mount a pony cinder. Let us know down in the comment section below, along with any questions that you have. If you have any scuba diving questions, pop them down in the comment section underneath this video. Use that #AskMark hashtag. Then of course head over to our website, scubadivingmag.com, if you haven't already. All our different social medias as well, and remember to like, share, subscribe, do all that good YouTube social media stuff. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.